All right, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it. Whoop, 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 whoop. I'm trying to remember what all the questions were. I read them earlier today. Lots happened since then.
That's very true. So here we go. JJ Redick just walked away from a lucrative podcasting career to become the head coach of the LA Lakers. My question to you, with the podcast thing in mind, what current Notre Dame football coach would you want to see have his own podcast?
This was a great question, and there was no answer that came like directly into my brain when I first read it. But I think the more I've thought about it, I've got two answers. So the first one, from just I think he's a good guy. I think he's got a great mind for football. I'd like to hear kind of stuff, stuff like that. It would be It would be Mike Denbrock.
Okay.
And I think he's a personable guy. I think it would be interesting, like that kind of a thing. If I wanted to skew a little younger and go with entertaining, I think I'm going to go Max Bulla. I think he could be very entertaining when it comes to a podcast.
That is a good one. That guy talks a million miles an hour
sometimes
too. But
yes, he does.
I think you're right. It could be fun. I didn't really think about Max Bulla, but I think that is a good answer. Actually, that would probably be the answer for defense. I went with the offensive side of the ball, though, and I went with Dylan McCullough because, he reminds me. I was sitting here when I was going through the Rolodex of, the coaches. It's like he's a little bit like Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction. Ving Rhames. He's physically imposing, but he's got this kind of chill demeanor. But he can talk the talk. It's like a cross between Apollo Creed and Marvin Hagler, if I'm going with boxers, since he kind of seems to like the boxing and stuff like that, because when we get to talk with McCullough, he's always very detailed and very vivid with his answers. But again, it's very, just kind of chill and matter of fact, but I could see him, having different players on, different coaches on, and just kind of chopping it up. And it would be pretty entertaining, I think, listening to that. So
for sure.
I think if you put Bulla and McCullough together, I think that could be a dynamic kind of podcast.
That could be good. That could be really good, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be good.
What if you went with former Notre Dame coaches? We can stick to head coaches here.
Okay.
Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz has his own podcast right now, but any former coaches?
Well, if this is the world of make-believe, then I would like to have Rockney have a podcast. I would love to hear about the innovations of football and stuff like that.
We're going to go up. We're going to go over. We're going to go run
them. That's pretty good.
Say, did you see the game last Saturday?
All of a sudden, it's 1920s. I love it. I think he would be fascinating to listen to, but obviously that can't happen. So.
Yeah, but we're wishing, right? I think actually Newt would be a very good one.
Yeah, because again, he was on the cutting edge of football at the time, and so I would love to talk to him about that, and then let him know kind of where things are now and see what his opinion would be of college football and all of those different things. So I think that would be fascinating, to be honest with you. Then, as far as coaches that are living. Currently,
yes,
obviously narrow it down.
Technology is available, and they have pulses.
Yes. Ty Willingham was a really nice guy, but I don't know how good of a podcast it would be. You know what I mean?
I think Weiss would actually be a pretty good podcast. He's obviously doing some radio now for Sirius XM, but the guy obviously likes to talk. And he likes to talk about football, and he's got the kind of personality that would be good for, and he knows a lot of people, and, not always afraid to let you know that he knows a lot of people. And that, I think
that's a good point.
There'd be something.
He'd be a storyteller. He would be
exactly.
He'd be name dropping left and right, which I think would be interesting all by itself.
Right.
Because that's the kind of guy that I feel like he would be.
Somebody said DK was talking about Chad Bowden as far as the current staff. And I think that would be a really good, and that would be like a purposeful podcast
his-
as well when you look at his
yes.
position, like both for the personality and, you know, just the importance of the role that he has over there. I think that would be a really good podcast, actually.
It would have to be like unfiltered, because I would like to know a lot of things about, you know, why is he not recruiting my kid and things of that. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I would like to know a lot of the ins and the outs of like his day-to-day routine. And, you know, I think that would be fascinating. I mean, like the inside look at the recruiting at Notre Dame. I think that would be absolutely fascinating. There's a lot of stuff you couldn't say.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Salty dropped this in while you were out. Weiss would have a decided podcast advantage.
That's good. That's
like
well done. That is well played.
Points for Salty on that one.
Yes.
Fill in the blank. The EA Sports College Football 25 game that is set to release in less than a month put out their list of the toughest places to play in college football, and it's blank that they have Texas A&M's Kyle Field at number 1 on their list.
Somewhat surprising is my answer. I would not have picked A&M, but I've never been there, so I guess I can't really say that they're wrong. The scary part is I kind of trust EA Sports more than I trust like Pro Football Focus for some of their opinions that they put out there. Because I'm sure EA Sports like asked hundreds and hundreds of people, you know, what's the toughest place you've ever played in, you know, stuff, things along those lines. But I am very surprised that Texas A&M is number 1. That shocks me.
I'm surprised as well. And you look, A&M, they have number 1, Alabama number 2, LSU at number 3, then Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Florida State, and Florida in the top 10. And really, Wisconsin, I don't know what, because they do jump around between the third and fourth quarter. I mean, you know, like all of those other places, with the exception of Florida, and while I guess in Alabama as well, Notre Dame has been to all of those places.
Yeah.
At least, you know what, probably since 2007. I think that was 07 when they went to Penn State. So they've been to all of the, well, except for LSU. So LSU, Alabama, A&M, and Florida. So they've been to 6 of those other places. Well, 5. I can't do math because they haven't been to Wisconsin either. But my point is, you don't hear A&M talk like you hear 12th man and all that stuff, but you don't hear A&M sort of with that reverential, like, oh, it's the toughest place to play. Like I think Tennessee would probably come to mind for a lot of people, especially when Tennessee is at their peak, you know, compared to Texas A&M. So I was a little surprised to see it in there as well.
Michigan's not on there. I thought that was a pretty raucous environment when I was up there for the Notre Dame Michigan game at night. I'm a little surprised they're not in the top 10, to be honest with you. They don't want to give them a whole lot of credit, but that was an omission in my eyes.
You buy or sell Notre Dame Stadium, not in the top 10.
I buy it because it's not. I mean, it's not.
And that's the problem. Notre Dame needs to work. I think they're getting better. They are getting better few years because of the things that they're doing, especially for the night games. But they got to work to make it a much more home field advantage.
Yes,
they really do.
I mean, you're right. It's getting better with the media stuff that they do, the videos, the music, a lot of that kind of stuff. I think it's getting better, but I just don't know that it'll ever be in the top 10. I find that to be, there's too many older season ticket holders that are going, they got money. They're not going to give up their seats.
Part of the deal, and I realize people, do their thing out in the tailgates.
That's part of it.
But they're not selling alcohol in the stadium. I saw Michigan is going to start selling alcohol in there. Most of these other places are selling alcohol in the stadiums.
Yeah.
Now, and whether you want to bow to it or not, that plays into the environment, right? Because what happens when you drink a few, you become less inhibited, right?
Yeah.
You're much more uninhibited when you do that. And that plays a part of it. And maybe Notre Dame wants to continue to avoid that. I don't know. But all these other places, most of them anyway, they're selling beer in the stadiums.
That's a really good point. Some people in the chat are saying, there's too many visiting fans in the stadium. I don't think I don't see that being a problem. I don't.
No.
It especially recently has not been the issue that people make it out to be. It's like Notre Dame players getting injured in the Navy game. Like that's not the problem that you think it is. I don't think that Notre Dame fans selling their tickets is the issue people think it is.
No. And, like Ohio State last year, right? Everyone was worried about Ohio State taking over the stadium, and that didn't happen.
That did not happen.
Far from it.
That did.
It was a great environment from a pro Notre Dame standpoint.
Yes.
But yeah, like this whole opposing thing, no, that doesn't, because what about the other, 5-6 home games
right
a year? Is it a, like those are largely high majority a pro Notre Dame home crowd.
Yes.
And it's still not a huge home field advantage.
Yep. Agreed.
So it's not just the big games. Yep. NCAA Division I Council has approved a rule change that's going to allow all football staff members now to provide coaching on the field during practices and games. It removes the restrictions from the NCAA's previous maximum of 11 countable coaches. You good with this change?
I mean, it allows teams to basically legally do what they've been doing already. How about that? I don't really have an issue with it. I think some schools are going to way overdo it, and they're going to try to bring in all these different people, and then it's just going to be too much. It's going to be too many voices in the ears of these players. You can have too many coaches. Like that is an absolute thing, right? And we talked about it back even when, you had quarterback coaches, you had offensive coordinators, you had head coach all in the ear of the quarterback. Like that's a problem, right? I think this could get out of hand and you could have too many coaches, and eventually I think you'll see it dialed back in.
Well, I mean, it's still up to the head coach who he wants on a headset and who he wants participating in that.
Oh, for sure.
Like just because there's not a there's not a limit doesn't mean he has to let it, everyone, be chiming in or whatever. They can wear the headsets and listen.
Right. I'm talking about a practice, like actually like getting coached up individually at practice. I think that there's a point where there's too many voices. That's what I'm saying. And I think these SEC teams, they're going to bring in like 25 different analysts and they're going to have them all out on the field. It's going to be too many. It's going to be too much.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that they'll scale it back at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's good because it lets you take advantage of your resources. I think, the bigger thing is like they're loosening this limit, but at the same time, at some point, some kind of roster limit is going to come to college football. And we don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know what the walk-on situation is going to, all of that different stuff, so are there going, like there's an 85-man scholarship limit right now. What's the roster limit going to look like? Like, are you actually going to need, this unlimited amount of coaches out there, so I think it's good, but, again, just like anything, you have to be able to sort of manage it and, sort of do it proportionally. I thought you went away there again for a second. I was worried.
I had to sneeze, and I don't want that screen grab out there. So
good. So yesterday we played part of Jim Schlossnagel's College World Series postgame press conference. After his Texas A&M team lost in the national championship game, he lit up a reporter who asked him about his future at A&M after the Texas head coach had been fired that same day. And, let's play the question and Schlossnagel's answer as a refresher. Again, we played this yesterday. There was a definite response and reaction to it yesterday. So this is his response right after he had lost in the national championship game to Tennessee. Hey, it wasn't said specifically Texas, but here you go.
Circulating today about a specific job opening. What do you have to say about your future in Aggieland?
I mean, I think it's pretty selfish of you to ask me that question, to be honest with you. But I left my family to be the coach at Texas A&M. I took the job at Texas A&M to never take another job again, and that hasn't changed in my mind. that's unfair to talk about something like that. That'd be like you asking Montgomery if he's going to sign in the draft. But I understand you got to ask the question, but I gave up a big part of my life to come take this job, and I've poured every ounce of my soul in this job, and I've given this job every single ounce I can possibly give it. So write that.
Write that.
Write that. So it's blank, Vince, that less than 24 hours after saying all that, Schlossnagle, in fact, left Texas A&M, and he is now the head coach at the University of Texas.
I think it's ridiculous. Number one, you can not like a question that's asked. Just say no comment. I have a hard time with people doubling down on the fact that I'm staying here. I love this job. I gave up half my life to come here. This is a destination job. And then 24 hours later, you're the head coach someplace else. Like, dude, I'd have a lot. Like, you are more than welcome to take another job. I have no problem with that. But don't take somebody out to the woodshed for asking the question and double down on it like you just did, and then go and do exactly what you said you're not going to do. It's an
when
integrity
it's
problem.
obvious that, again, he says all that. He tells the reporter that the reporter is the selfish one for asking the question.
Right.
He uses his family as a shield in this. He says it's an unfair question to ask. And he says that he went to Texas A&M to never take another job again, and that hasn't changed. So, again, less than 24 hours later, he storms off the stage after so write that. He's the head coach less than 24 hours later. He had the press conference today. Now, I saw it today in his press conference, he did apologize to the reporter.
Oh, did he?
And he said the reporter's, he used the reporter's name and apologized to him. But, yesterday we've got people saying, because again, this is before, like literally we're done with the show yesterday. Jesse sends me this tweet that there are reports that he's actually going to take the job, but we played that quote yesterday, that same soundbite yesterday, before he had actually taken the job, and there were any reports out there that he was taking it. We've got people like, oh, what a stupid question. It's like, that's why you ask the question as a reporter. That's why you ask the question, because now look how differently everyone is looking at that same response. Again, less than 24 hours later. It's ridiculous that he got up there and reacted the way he did. And again, he turned it on the reporter. There are much better ways that he could have addressed that.
Absolutely.
Just like, I just lost the national championship game. I don't even want to talk about that right now.
Yes, that's exactly what he should have said.
It's all he had to say.
Right.
But it's obvious that he had already been talking to Texas at that point. So all this whole thing, that whole response just makes him look even dumber than he would have looked.
He could have shielded up and done exactly what you just said and just said, look, man, I don't know that that's the time or the place for that conversation. I'm hurting right now. The game that just went on. We can have that conversation at a later date. I appreciate the question. It's just not something I'm going to answer right now.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And clearly he knew he was going to take that job.
And that's my point. Like he was talking to Texas while he's still coaching Texas A&M, yet he's saying all this stuff about I'm here at Texas A&M so I can never take another job. And it's like, it's obvious as those words are coming out of his mouth that he fully intended on taking another job. And it's just ridiculous that he reacted the way he reacted.
How do those words come out of your mouth when you know that you're lying? You know what I mean? Like, you're not being truthful with people.
Right.
Like, that is just a bold-faced, to-your-face lie.
Right.
And that's the biggest issue. Like, how can you trust this guy? How can you trust this guy? He just lied to America, with no problem and got indignant about it. Like, not only did he lie, but he's like, that's a terrible question. I can't write that. And then now we're writing about the fact that he took another job.
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is Texas fired a really successful head coach, David Pierce, to hire Schlossnagle. Now Schlossnagle, his relationship with Del Conte, the Texas athletic director, goes back to their time together at TCU, but the guy that Texas fired had only missed the NCAA tournament once in his 8 years, and he took them to the College World Series 3 times. If you're A&M, it seems like there's a pretty good alternative on the market right now.
Well,
If you wanted to just go out and hire their head coach.
Schulte has a real good point here. He says A&M should hire
Oh, there you
Pierce
go.
to
I
be
didn't
a
even
coach
see
swap
that.
with
Yeah.
Texas paying a buyout.
Yeah. There
I
you
mean-
go. This is apparently the most expensive college baseball coaching move ever because it was like a $2.7 million buyout to get him and the whole thing.
That's nuts.
It's crazy. Slip a couple more in here. Andre says, if Notre Dame goes undefeated and looks dominating, are they beating Georgia or Ohio State and Oregon in the playoff?
That's way too much speculation for me. I need to see how Georgia and Ohio State and Oregon look. Georgia could be 9-3 in this season if you look at their schedule. Their schedule is murderer's row. Okay, there's a chance they don't even make the playoff. So I need to see how everybody plays before I start saying that Notre Dame is going to dominate and beat all these other teams. Because the other thing is they're not even going to see those teams until at least the second round, if not the third round. So I'm going to have to hold off on that. Andre, it's a good question, and I appreciate it. But let's see what everybody looks like at the end of the year, and then I'll tell you whether I think Notre Dame can beat them or not.
Salty had a couple of recruiting questions that he plopped in there as well. He said if the Irish could have strong recruiting success in one state, choosing between California, Texas, and Florida, which should it be? I mean, to me, it's just honestly the state that has the best players. Like it doesn't matter where they come from as long as they're good, right? Or great, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess out of the choice that you're giving me, I guess I'll take Texas because I think there's probably more choices in Texas. Second place for me would probably be Florida and then California because I think I have a better shot at Notre Dame of getting players out of Florida and Texas than I do of California. Not that I don't have that possibility. I do, and I would still do it, but I think that there's more West Coast draw for kids than there is draw for kids in Florida per se. Like Notre Dame's done a good job in Florida, and they've done a good job in Texas recently as well. So I guess that's the order I would go in.
Yeah. Like I said, the state that they happen to come from doesn't matter to me. So I would
Not
just
even
say,
a little bit.
Yeah, just wherever the best players are. I think that's my answer to that. So Vince, you've heard of the movie A Bridge Too Far, right?
I have.
Have you ever seen it?
I have not. I have not seen it.
I had never seen it before this weekend either, and I recorded it. World War II movie from 1977.
Hey,
do you know anything about it? Like
nothing. Nothing outside of what I looked up the crew, the cast and stuff like that. It's a star-studded cast.
I tell you what, I had never seen it. It's one of these that I probably seen it on the channel guide before and flipped over and maybe watched a couple minutes of it. But never. It's a 3-hour movie for one, but it's it's about Operation Market Garden, World War II.
Okay,
which I didn't know a ton about in detail, the specifics, but the cast of this movie is what stood out to me as I started watching it. Sir Laurence Olivier, Michael Caine, Sean Connery, Anthony Hopkins, Gene Hackman, Ryan O'Neal, Elliot Gould, James Caan, Robert Redford, and Maximilian Schell, who's basically like the German in every World War II movie from the 60s and 70s. But that's what stood out. I'm watching this movie and every prominent person is one of the most famous actors in the world when this movie is being made in 1977. It's literally like an all-star game. It's that cast combined to win 11 Oscars, and the director, George Attenborough, won 2 Oscars himself. It's wow. How is that the best, not the best cast ever assembled in movie history? That's what I'm thinking as I'm watching this thing.
It's impressive. I will tell you that. Now I have this app that tells me where movies are, and it said it was on Fubo, but then I went to Fubo and I can't find it. So that's a little disturbing.
Yeah,
but,
it's 3 hours long, which again is probably why I never invested more time watching it before. And it's, again, it's like Operation Market Garden, which the real, like, I know what, like, I had a couple World War II history, classes in college, and I know it touched on it, but not like detail, like the whole detail of this. Like, probably what I knew most about Market Garden was, you've seen Band of Brothers.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yep.
Do you remember the Band of Brothers episode? It's their second jump where they jump into Holland
Mm-hmm.
and they liberate Eindhoven in Holland. That was part of Operation Market Garden.
Okay.
And I knew that the big, like, big picture Market Garden, was a flop and all that kind of stuff. Basically, it was like, they were the big objective was to take this bridge in Arnhem, because they were everyone, you always want to take the bridges and all that kind of stuff. But that was the objective.
Okay.
Was that, and then the British end up, the British were a big part of the whole, operation. They get obliterated basically. But again, it's like I'm watching this movie, and there's this all-star studded cast, and like an hour and a half into the movie, all of a sudden there's Robert Redford for the first time. He shows up an hour and a half.
Wow.
Arguably the biggest star in the world in 1977. And he shows up an hour and a half. He's like this major, and he's got like 3 scenes in the whole movie. It's like Barry Bonds pitch hitting in an all-star game or something. But
That's awesome.
I don't know. I was hoping maybe you had seen it.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, Sean is like is going to give like Operation Market Garden big details here, Sean Stewart. But the main objective was the bridge in Arnhem, but there were 3 other bridges they were trying to secure as well. But it was very interesting, between the cast and just seeing the detail. Like the other thing that stood out to me after watching it is like Market Garden was a big failure, and you don't usually see like that amount of stars and like a movie made about something that ultimately was a failure. You know
That's
what I
true.
mean?
That's true.
It's like
everybody's looking for the happy
like
ending.
Friday Night Lights, the game, the movie ends with a loss, right?
Oh,
You don't see
spoiler.
you don't see that happen very often.
Spoiler alert. Speaking of movies, I want to bring this up.
Okay.
Stymie says, I'm anxious to see Costner's new film Horizon this weekend. He says he hasn't been to a movie theater in probably over a decade.
Wow.
Crazy. This one's just a little over 3 hours. Are you interested in that movie?
I had never heard of it. Is this the Western that
Yes.
he's been making?
It's a 2-parter. They're going to release this weekend is the first part. The second part doesn't come out until the middle of August.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if they're both 3 hours long or what.
Like, I never got into Yellowstone, and so I don't know.
Did you watch any of it?
No.
Never watched any of it.
Nope.
It is worth your time.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know my wife brought it up one point. I think it was on, is it on Paramount?
It is. It's on
Yeah.
Paramount.
See, we don't, that's like probably the only main, like big streamer we don't have.
I get that too. But it is also on Peacock, because that's where I started to watch it.
Okay.
And so you don't get the new ones, but you get like once the season's over, they throw it over on Peacock, kind of a thing.
Gotcha.
It is a little disturbing at times, and it can be a little jarring at times, but it is a good series.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Stymie's got his Donald Sutherland oddball from Kelly's Heroes. What do you call that? Photo in there. Have you ever seen Kelly's Heroes?
No.
Oh, man.
I'm struggling with you today, I guess.
You got to see Kelly's Heroes. I watched that over the weekend as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I watched Kelly's Heroes first because of Donald Sutherland passing last week, and that was one of my Kelly's Heroes Dirty Dozen, like two of my favorite Donald Sutherland performances. Kelly's Heroes is like a little bit of dramedy, like World War II dramedy. They're trying to go after this bank and take some Nazi gold in the middle of World War II. Really good cast. Clint Eastwood. Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts, thanks again for the super chat. He says, at the end of the season, how will we know if Lauren Lando was successful in year 1? How much can does he move the needle on Notre Dame's championship goals?
I mean, look, at the end of the year, we can count up how many injuries took place. There were a lot of hamstrings last year, obviously, which you can, look back on. I mean, Notre Dame, I think in Marcus Freeman's eyes, they upgraded in the strength and conditioning because Lauren is more of a innovative, new age, using the technology type of guy, right? And
Right.
so they look at that as an upgrade. I think Bayless did a great job. Like Bayless elevated the strength and conditioning program at Notre Dame. No two ways about it. When was the last time, we thought that Notre Dame didn't have a good November? You know what I mean? Like they've been strong in November ever since Bayless took over. And so I think it's going to take a little bit, but let's see hamstrings. Let's see the wear and tear injuries. Like
that's the
those
biggest
kind of
thing for
things.
me is like, because, unfortunately, like people are going to get upset, and that, like, I don't even like to, kind of put it out there, but like when you talk about, for an example, someone who has, like tears an Achilles or tears an ACL, or, those are actual injuries that happen in the course of the game. And there's nothing that a strength coach can do about those kind of things. A shoulder injury that pops up,
like
those
a broken
kind of
arm.
things.
Yeah.
Obviously broken bones. Strength coach can't do anything about that. It's the soft tissue stuff that's got to get cleaned up. And the fact that, Jaden Thomas obviously had hamstring stuff last year and it reemerged in the spring. And there were a few hammies in the spring still.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that's got to get reduced. Like, to me, that's going to be a big thing. And, like the difference between like what Lando is doing and what Bayless was doing. Bayless was more the, bulk mass strength type stuff, whereas Marcus Freeman brought Lauren Lando in for more of the dynamic explosiveness, new school, if that's what you want to call it. That's more what Lando seems to specialize in, is that kind of thing. The dynamic speed, explosiveness, change of direction, all that different kind of stuff, sort of like trying to train the bodies to be more athletic, essentially. So but I think the most basic thing that we're going to look at is, are those soft tissue type things, the hamstring type injuries, reduced this year under Lando? I think that's the big thing that I'll be looking for.
Yep. Agreed.
Wanted to ask you one last question, because I was listening to a podcast today. They were talking about the Bad News Bears.
Okay.
And you've seen the Bad News Bears, right?
Both versions and all of the sequels of the original.
Right. One of the scenes, they go into the Pizza Hut in the original Bad News Bears.
Yes.
Like the post-game Little League Pizza Hut celebration.
Yes.
Are you old enough that was still a thing when you were growing up? Like, you finish the game, you go to Pizza Hut, and you live it up with the baseball team.
100%. Yes, absolutely. Excellent. Loved going to the Pizza Hut buffet. Was where it's at. And I love the Pizza Hut buffet, first of all. Let me just be very clear on that. And then also book it. You take your little book it thing in there and you get the personal pan pizza and you get the button with the stars on it for doing your reading and stuff. Oh yeah, that is right up my alley of my youth. Yes.
I wasn't sure like if you would make the cutoff, because like as the 90s progressed, and it might have taken until the 2000s, like when the actual dine-in Pizza Hut buffet type places started disappearing. Like that was the thing though, man. Like you go in, after the game, you raid the Pizza Hut, everyone's still got their uniforms on and you're all dirty and you got your shirts untucked, and everyone who's already in the Pizza Hut scrambles to get to the buffet before the team comes in, because they know the team is going to raid the pizza. That's right. But, like you get your big plastic red cup, full of pop, and dads, the dads could go in and, they're like at their table with their pitchers of beer. And then the moms go to the salad bar and they've got their tab and all that kind of stuff. And kids are just killing the pizza. And it's like, why is there mushroom and a hamburger pepperoni pizza on this? Like, bring out the fresh pepperoni pizza. I don't want the pizza with the mushrooms and the vegetables.
100%. 100%. Yes.
See, Tommy is a young guy. He's saying Pizza Hut is,
oh, you're full of
crap,
it, Tommy.
but like,
you don't understand.
You are too young to remember, Tommy, because if I remember right, you were born like mid-'80s. You're way too young to remember, like, Pizza Hut was the thing, especially that Pizza Hut buffet back in the day. That was it, man.
We also We also did Shakey's. I don't know if you had a Shakey's near you.
We had a Shakey's and we had a place called Straw Hat Pizza. I
Okay.
think it was one place had a Shakey's, another place had a Straw. I think they were fairly similar, if I remember.
Yeah.
right.
So we had a Shakey's, and one of my friends growing up, his dad owned the local Shakey's. And so we would go there a lot as well because, Richard's dad owned the place. And so we would go there for parties all the time. But yes, Pizza Hut was absolutely top notch. Top notch.
Top of the
man.
line, man.
It was
Top of the line.
awesome.
You were living when you went to Pizza Hut after
Oh
the
my
game.
gosh, it was unbelievable. And it's funny, when I was in high school, I dated a girl who was from a very small town, and what they would do for fun is they would go to the big town and go to Pizza Hut and hit the buffet as high school kids. Like, that was the hangout, was to go to the Pizza Hut, which I thought was pretty funny. And so I had many a Pizza Hut date back when I was in
nice.
high school.
Very nice.
So, yeah.
Sloppy Joe, by the way, going back to the Bad News Bears, he says the newer one. He says the remake is better. The Billy Bob.
Oh, hard pass. No.
Yeah, no way.
Disagree completely.
Sorry. Like, just you could. It's obvious that the movies were made like 30 years apart, right? Like, let's just put it that way. I mean, you had, again, like Walter Matthau and Tatum O'Neal, for starters, had both won Academy Awards. Before the Bad News, you had 2 Academy Award winners in that movie.
Yes.
And, most of the cast, most of the, the kids really went on to do nothing. But Kelly Leak, Jackie Earle Haley, like, how can you say no to that?
Just saying.
Yep.
Fred Benson with a terrible take. No offense, Fred. But he says Pizza Hut was great back in the day, but Domino's and Papa John's are better.
Ooh.
Saved $10 on my Papa John's order with Papa Dough. Order cost me $13. Papa John's is the worst pizza on the planet. I'm sorry. I can't stand Papa John's.
The only good thing about Papa John's is when it's free. Like, that's literally the only time. It is kind of cool, though, by the way, this thing that have you seen these commercials that Domino's is doing where, like, if you tip the delivery guy at least $3, they'll give you a credit for the next time you order. So, like,
really?
if you tip the delivery guy at least $3, you get they give you a credit for they'll take it off your next order, basically.
I did not know that. I've never done delivery, so ever.
It's been a while since we've done delivery.
My wife's always like, get in the car and go get it. You're
that's
gonna
right.
be fine.
Got to save the money. We're not paying the delivery fee.
Not paying the delivery fee.
Right.
So yeah, and people need to understand, we're talking about old school Pizza Hut back in the day when it was the buffet.
Yes.
We're not talking about the 2024 version of Pizza Hut.
Right. What you know as Pizza Hut today
completely
can't touch
different.
Pizza Hut in the 70s and 80s.
Completely different.
Probably even the early 90s for that matter.
Right. We are not talking about the Pizza Hut of today. So I need people to understand that. That's not the debate we're having.
Big difference. I realize we can't transport back in time, especially for the older or the younger guys. But that old school Pizza Hut buffet, man. Because like we had a teacher when I was in grade school who, if you got, I can't remember how many, if you aced your spelling test, however many in a row it was, he would take us to lunch at the Pizza Hut buffet as a reward. I only got it once. I don't know how many times I'd get like 9 out of 10.
But it's worth it.
Over again.
You'll never forget.
That's right. But I did it, whatever it was. I don't remember if it was 5 or 10 or however many it was. But that one time, I got my Pizza Hut lunch at the buffet for acing those spelling tests. I loved it.
That is awesome.
Yes.
That's something to strive for, man. Like, if that was a reward,
I know.
That would be great.
You'll appreciate this because that same guy was like, he sort of like burst the illusion of the teacher, because I remember in the summer, it was after that year, went to the lumber yard and he had on like the apron at the lumber yard. It wasn't Home Depot, because I don't even know if they had Home Depot, but it was like the local lumber yard. He was working at the lumber yard. It's like, hold it, teachers have second jobs.
Yeah, all of them.
That's right. The first time I ever experienced that.
I love seeing the look on kids' faces when they see me like out in town, like for the first time ever. And they do like the double take, and they're like, "Wait, what? Ooh." You know, even to this day, when people see the dean out like at dinner or something, it's like they don't know if they should talk to me or what. It's pretty funny. It's hilarious.
There's the czar of discipline having dinner in the same.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times it's like going to Culver's or something like that, and the kids are working. You know what I mean? And they're like, name for the order. You know, it's pretty funny.
Mr. D'Addario.
Yeah, get it.
All right. Well, we will wrap it up with that. Some good pizza talk. Now we're all hungry here at the end. But those were the days, man. That Pizza Hut buffet. I wish that I could. I really do wish that I could just put people in a time machine and take you back like to 1985 and experience some of that.
I would kill to go back to that. I really would. Like that. I mean, the buffet in general has pretty much just kind of gone away. Unless you're going to like Golden Corral or something, and the clientele in there is not fantastic.
Yeah.
It's, you know, just like
it's like Chinese buffet is one of the few
remaining.
Chinese buffet and Golden Corral are like probably the only buffets left in the world.
Like me and my football buddies, when we were in high school, we used to take down like Ryan's, you know, like that kind of a thing. You know, it was Ryan's, but like Ryan's and Ponderosa were owned by the same people.
Right.
But like we used to just, I mean, sure, they lost money on people like us. You know what I mean? That's probably one of the reasons. But as soon as COVID hit, it's like that's all that stuff is gone. Just gone.
Yep.
It's a shame.
The way of the dinosaur. That's right. All right. Well, hit the like button before you leave. We appreciate you being here. Don't forget, tomorrow is We In, We Out Day on the show. And so if you're a member of the Champions Lounge, head over there and drop in your We In, We Out questions for us for tomorrow's show. There will also be a return of the whiteboard. We got a couple of different whiteboard things that a certain former linebacker is going to draw up on tomorrow's show, including something interesting. We saw a video, a little wrinkle that you can probably look forward to Texas A&M using this season with Colin Klein being their new offensive coordinator. So there's a little wrinkle that we're going to draw up, that Jesse's going to draw up on tomorrow's show. So
I thought maybe he was going to use the whiteboard to draw up how he proposed.
Someone actually requested that, but
that's great.
He did go into detail. You probably did.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that then.
Yeah. Yep. He did. He did explain his proposal strategy on yesterday's show.
I'm interested to see how it went because it took him. I feel like it took him about 10 years to come up with it.
No kidding. Ask his mom. All right. That's it. Hit the like button, subscribe, rate, review. We'll talk to you tomorrow. IB Nation Sports Talk.